Hey folks, how you doing? Jovan, Hutton, Pulitzer. Thanks for joining me this evening. I know this page is a little bit different than where you normally join me, where I can broadcast to tens of thousands of you at a time, but there's a little hiccups with Facebook. Don't adjust your screen or everything. I'm intentionally broadcasting in a lower bandwidth. I've reduced it down, maybe a little bit of grainy. I'm doing that so we can get you information as quick as possible, and you can kind of watch this and see what's going on and it not have hiccups all over the screen. Here's what we're going to be talking about tonight. If you want, take this link, look up the top of the page, take the link, drop it, save it to your Facebook wall or wherever. Add this, you can get this broadcast on YouTube, you can get this broadcast also on Facebook. You'll be able to ask me questions here on the screen. As you post comments on the screen, I should be able to see most of them. Of course, globally, there's a little bit of a slowdown. Let me tell you what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the history of pandemics. And of course, all of us are in this together with this COVID-19, this coronavirus 19 pandemic. And most of us are sitting at home at a time when the young ones want to be out at the beach in Florida and spring break and stuff, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we deal with this pandemic? How is it going to affect us? And that's what I want to share with you from a historical perspective. The reason I want to share you this from a historical perspective is simply because, you and I have a lot in common. If you're watching this broadcast and you're tuning in right now, we have two things in common. Number one is we now have this incredible system of the internet we're using right now, right? That we can all engage and share in information with, back and forth right now. Think of that relative to history. I mean, we have people joining us. I can see people popping in the broadcast from Australia, from Canada. Here we are all connected via this medium, sharing this information tonight. But I want to let you know there's one more very important trait that all of us share in this particular crisis that we're dealing with together as a world, this COVID-19. And what is it that we have in common? Think about it for a minute. Pause just for a second. We're a society that unfortunately we know more as a whole of why Lamar Odom OD'd in a brothel, right? More of us across the globe know what a Brangelina is. Hell, we even know what Nipplegate was, far more than we understand even just our own history of the world. And that's part of why I wanted to share this. But what do we have in common? We have in common that you, everybody in your family, everybody in the rooms around you, you and me, have already survived pandemics and epidemics. Now think about that for a moment. I want to put it into perspective because a lot of people are truly freaking out about COVID-19. And I am not at all saying minimize this. That is not what I'm saying, not at all. I am saying understand it, understand how it will play out, understanding how it will play out for you and your role in it and your place in the world. And that's what we're going to talk about. And I think you gain that by understanding and having a perspective about pandemics. So that thing we share, you and I, multiple times already, have already survived pandemics and epidemics, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And that's why I say is we're in a society today that knows more about Rihanna and Chris Brown fighting and Brangelina and all this other stuff than we know about even our own history. And I think if I can give you a simple perspective on history, what you will gain is some comfort, some peace, and some understanding that we've been here before. And this is the single best time in history. You are in the right place at the right time to be faced with something of this magnitude. Why is that? Think about what I just said. We got people from joining us from down under. We got people up in Canada. Got people all over the state. Chime in, folks. Let me know where you're from. Pop it up on the screen. I'll read some of them out. Here we are through a very simple device, whether you be on your mobile phone, your computer, whatever the case may be, is I can talk with you and share you real-time information. That's the key. That's why this COVID-19 is happening to you and your family, as horrible as it is, at the right time in the right place. And I don't take this lightly. I don't take this lightly. Let me tell you why I don't take this lightly. My own youngest son is in quarantine right now for being around somebody who was actively exposed and diagnosed with COVID-19. There's not much you can do about it, right? I could worry and freak about it, yes. But I choose, both as a historian and as a father, to approach this very simply and with facts and with education for very simple rules that all of us can go. So we're going to get started here. We got, look, Illinois, another one from Illinois, Las Vegas, Newcastle, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, baby, John Earls, Las Vegas, Central Arizona, Saskatchewan, right? Up there, look, all over. We're doing this. Now, do you realize that social media, just back a decade ago, was nowhere near as big as it is today? Go back 15 years ago. It was nowhere near as prolific as today. Remember, cellular phones and iPhones, from the iPhone standpoint, and the big release was 2008. That's not that long ago. The cell phone ability to communicate the way we do now, the ability that we have to do right now to share instant information, is really only an advent of right now. And so that means right now, as things occur, as things are adjusted, pulled back, as they get worse, as they get better, what you should do, what we found out, all gets to you within seconds, maybe mere minutes. You know right away, and that is why right now, for this one, as cruddy as it is, you are at the best place and time in history to deal with a pandemic, an epidemic. First, let me tell you a short story about shit hitting the fan. And I know that's probably not the best way to say it, but here's the bottom line. In all my years of exploration around the globe, I've had to deal with some pretty horrible things. I've dealt with death around me. I've dealt with live fire and coming under, combatant situation. I've dealt with watching people get blown up and vaporized as suicide bombers. I've even dealt with bringing the jungle rot back from the jungle, and that is no fun. But one event in my life happened in the 90s, and I'm going to share that with you very, very quick so you understand how quickly hell can break loose and all shit can hit the fan, and why that is not what's going on right now. And it is this vehicle of social media that basically is why it's not going on. So I was speaking at a television conference in Los Angeles. I had two things to do. I was presenting at the conference, and then I was going to have to fly out with Paula Abdul under the Under My Spell tour and film her on tour. And so I get to Los Angeles and I'm speaking at a television event. And during that television event, the live news broadcast popped in and basically said, the verdict has come down. Now, the event was the Rodney King verdict. Okay? And for those of you that might not be young enough, Google it real quick. For those of you that are old enough, you understand it. It was how video cameras, now it's on all our phones, but that was a video camera that somebody happened to be carrying with them, which was very rare. That video camera caught this person who had run from police, who was under the influence of drugs, and police using force, excessive force, to try to get this individual to comply, and everybody's kind of gone nuts. It was caught on camera, and it was the shot heard around the world at that time. Well, the nation goes through a trial, and all of a sudden the Rodney King verdict comes down. Now, it was a powder keg waiting to happen because Rodney King was a Black American, and most of the police, two weren't, but most of the police were white Americans, and everybody at the time screamed it was a racial issue. So I knew it was going to be a problem. So as soon as I got done speaking in Santa Monica, I had to literally just head out Sunset Strip, go from the beach, Sunset, come into Sunset near Rodeo and stuff right there. If you've ever watched any of the music biops, I was right there at the Whiskey, right? Whiskey Go-Go, and I had to just basically go up the hill to the top of the hill where I was living at the time. And so I hopped in the car, and I could hear on the radio that everybody was going nuts, and there were shots fired, and I'm freaking out, going, oh, that's great, I'm driving a convertible. Now, when people are randomly firing on the street, you certainly don't want to be in the way of the fire, but you also don't want to be in a convertible when it happens. So I finally get to the house. I'm kind of freaking out. I come in and I walk out to the patio where you can see down below on the Sunset Strip, right? Madonna lived one house down. Sylvester Stallone lived up to the left. And I'm looking out across the valley. And as far as I could see to my right and to my left, everything was on fire. Everything on Wilshire, just up and down, everything was on fire. And I think to myself, holy shit, this got bad fast. And so I ran over to the TV to turn on to try to understand what was going on because the reports were brand new and coming in. And just as soon as I turned on the TV, I was able to see two guys pull Reginald Dennehy out of his big rig and basically take bricks and bash his head in, smash his head. He's laying there in the street all bleeding. And I knew pandemonium had set in. Panic and chaos was the rule of the day. So I hopped in the car and I sped down the hill. And by the time I got down to Sunset, and I'm headed left on Sunset looking for appropriate grocery store, where the grocery store was already boarded up. Already, every shop, right? Boom, boom, boom. It's being boarded up as fast as it could. I went into one grocery store. People were duking it out over a loaf of bread. There wasn't enough left anyway, but people are literally fighting over canned goods and loaves of bread. And I left that and decided, okay, I'll try another route. And eventually, a couple of miles down the road, I actually spied a little convenience store that kind of set up on a hill out of a nook. It was right off the traffic. And I bopped up there real quick, thinking, okay, this is great. I can grab some food to eat. People didn't see this off of the highway. Probably everybody doesn't know this was here. And I probably have a chance to get some food. I have a photo of the food that I was able to get. Now, mind you, from the drive across from Santa Monica in, half hour, right? Getting up to the house was nothing. Looking from the time Reginald Dennehy had the brick in the head, I'm talking I was out of the house in 2 minutes, down the hill, headed down Sunset. Here's the food that I was able to acquire. Ready for this? Okay, there you go. The only food in this shop, the only food in this shop that was left on the shelf was 3 Yoo-Hoos. That's the little chocolate milk that you see there, right? 3 Yoo-Hoos. And those little, I guess, what would you say they are? They are, well, what is it? Ho-hos, right? Snowballs. I thought they were called ho-hos then, right? And so all I was able to get was a few packages of ho-hos. Those are those pink little snowball looking things. They have a chocolate, they have a creamy center, then chocolate cake, and then a little gooiness. And then they're sprinkled with coconut, which is dyed pink in yoo-hoos, right? And that was it. That was the only food that was left on the shelf. I felt bad. I took it all, but there was only 3 of one and 2 of the other. And the reason I'm showing you this one book that's here, that's one of my books that I published, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. And it's called How to Cut Off Your Arm and Eat Your Dog. And it's a book. It's a book about basically surviving. How can you survive when shit hits the fan? Now, I showed you that because what I just showed you is a true crisis. The valley was on fire. People were looting. People were shooting. People were using it as an advantage to clobber each other. There was no food. There was no warning. All pandemonium broke loose. That is not what we are going through right now. You may have had some inconvenience at the grocery stores. And yes, everybody became fascinated with toilet paper, right? But between you and me, I don't think we shit more during a pandemic. I could be wrong, but everybody seemed to hoard toilet paper, which is okay, right? They did it, it is, and everybody complained about it. So I want to do just a little relative comparison to you for history, because remember, our history, what was behind us, doesn't define what happens or define our future. It's how we react to what we learned in history, how we go forward in history and make it better. And that's exactly what we're going to end up doing with this COVID-19. And so even though you've probably been inconvenienced at the store, and even though we live in a society today where there's now Uber Eats and you can text and you can do all kinds of wonderful stuff, just like we're doing right now, back then you couldn't, and I've seen it when it gets bad. So let's take a look at what does all of this, right? What does all of this, how does it rank in history as to where are we in the curve of history, looking at backwards historical time, where are we in relation? Now, first, you need to understand where our nation, if you're in the United States and Canada tuning in, here's what's kind of going on. The pandemic, we're in the spike of the pandemic. We're still climbing. China, on the other end, basically, because it is a China virus and it started in China. By the way, warning, you may hear some racist, what you think are racist things from me. No, they're facts. Let me tell you how you can prove they're facts. It's a China virus. That's where it started. That's where we're learning our information on how to react. China hit first, went around the world. China now has the curve under control. We're following their lead. Therefore, it's a China virus. But do we all of a sudden not call it China virus? And does that mean we no longer have Chinese food, Mexican food, or Thai food? I'm kind of confused on that one. I don't know what to call it. I've thought a lot about it. And I think, well, I could call it Asian food. Well, I can't do that. Are we going to start calling these things by GPS coordinates? I don't think so. Not racist. It's where it begins. And you're going to see it as I share some of the names for you. This is where the names come from and what it is. Let's look at some of the graphics that will help put this into perspective for you, right? And how does some of this occur and or relate to what's going on right now? Let me shrink that down a bit. You should be able to see it on my screen. Here are some of the global health epidemic timelines that are kind of right in our immediate timeline in the 2000s, okay? Now, when you look at epidemics, did you know, look at 2000, did you know that one of the epidemics the globe is going through, which is declared an epidemic, is obesity? Now, I'm not minimizing that at all, right? But it was declared that because it reduced people's lifespan by 10 years. In 2004, the Angola Marburg virus, when it came out, very deadly, 227 of the 252 that got it died. In 2008, the rotavirus, there were 450,000 child deaths that occurred around the globe. Have you heard of the rotavirus? 2010, there was the World Cardiovascular Diseases, SARS, some of the different things that came from it. You probably heard it from different names because it had different names. But did it really register with you that there were 17.3 million deaths during those years? Or how about 2010? Did you know there was a California whooping cough epidemic? Whooping cough. Now, I can remember that from when I was a child. I'm in my 50s. But in 2010, approximately 9,000 cases, 809 hospitalizations, and 10 deaths. 2013, the Guinea Ebola outbreak. Yes, now maybe you've heard of Ebola. The media took off on that one. 28,500 cases confirmed, approximately 11,000 deaths, right? Malaria in Uganda, 198 million episodes, and approximately 500,000 deaths caused. You might not have heard of that one. And then you heard of Zika, the Brazil Zika virus, birth defects affect children, and that's active in at least 20 countries. What's my point? I just showed you a very short window in the 2000s. Some of those most people have never heard of. Now, what makes this COVID-19 so in your face, everybody panicking, everybody freaking out, and you should very much take it seriously, but what causes that? Well, this is the first time in history 3 things have occurred. Social media and mobile phone usage are 100% synonymous. There used to be mobile phone usage, then there used to be a certain amount of smartphone usage, mobile phone usage. Smartphones basically totally took over like iPhones, and it was a smartphone age, and then smartphone and social media basically blended. And so in a social media age, people can very quickly share information. That's what I was talking about, and you're right. Every 2 years, and you're exactly right, MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, and they called it Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome not because they were racist and it came from Antarctica. It's identified by where it comes from: Chinese food, Mexican food, Thai food. So I want you to kind of understand that. So now let me show you some other pieces. And so what I'm trying to show you there is if you look at some of those, you didn't hear about them. You didn't even know about them. 450,000 children dying. That would be horrible. But some of these didn't occur in this new connected age. The second thing we had going on is for the last 4 years, our nation as United States of America has been in a media war on the political front, and every possible way something bad can be said or something bad can be spun, like the Chinese virus is racist. They're trying to take it off the virus and make it racist, trying to reflect on what's going on in politics. So we all know politics is cuckoo, right? Willy Wonka wonkers, combined with everybody so freaking wound up because we've had Antifa and we've had everything else and we've had riots and we've had shootings and we have all this stuff going on that it's hit this kind of perfect point that everything seems incredibly magnified. It should be, coronavirus is very serious, but I want to say maybe let's take a breath just for a moment, because we're prepared to deal with this better than any other time in histories. Let me show you why. I want to show you some other of my screens here that will help you understand why I actually say that, okay? Because it's very interesting when you look at some of these. Take a look at this. Now, these are just to help you put certain things into perspective over time. I'm going to give you a great visualization to understand some of these. But let's just look like, let's look at the Asian flu, right? That's H2N2. You see it down about midway? H2N2. Spanish flu was H1N1. And the Asian flu, H2N2, which lasted 1957 through 1958, claimed 1.1 million lives. The Hong Kong flu, they named it that because that's where it comes from. That's how flus are named and things are named. 1968 through 1970, H3N2 virus variation killed 1 million people. Most people forget that HIV/AIDS is also a pandemic. 1981 to present, still going on, 25 to 35 million people affected by it. Swine flu, 2009 to 2010, H1N1, that's the one you heard about they thought came from pigs, 200,000 people. SARS affected 770, Ebola, 11,000, right? That went on for several years. MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, affected 850, and COVID-19 that you're seeing in the moment, these are March 20th, 2000 updates. Why am I showing you this? I'm showing you these numbers to help you understand relative scale to where we are in this process truly. We have to understand where it is truly. And I can't see who made the comment, but you're right. Pigs were very offended by swine flu. I apologize to bacon. I said bacon. I apologize to Middle Eastern respiratory. It's very hard not to say words connected with them, and now people can point. See how ridiculous this racist stuff is? But those of you that claim it's racist to say China flu or Chinese food, you got to be a purist, just like a vegan, right? You can't wear leather shoes if you're a vegan and don't eat animals. So I expect every one of you to stop eating Chinese food, German food, Mexican food, Thai food. Look, period, baby. Pizza and fries and burgers for the rest of your life for you. But anyway, let's move on. Let me show you some relative scales because people think in visual terms. And I want to share with you the visual sides of how this epidemic, because sometimes just looking at it in that list doesn't help you understand scales because unfortunately, a lot of people are enumerate. Enumerate only means you don't process numbers very well. And so since we're a visual nation and we learn visually, let me share with you some of the visual components so we can put this into perspective for you. So let me share my screen again here. Let me share with you, I think it's this one. Let me see if I've got it right. No, wrong one. Let me close that one. I'm going to stop that. I'll close it so I don't do it again. And let me go to the proper one. Stand by. Share my screen one more time. Share screen. It is this one. Let's see. Bingo! There it is. I got it right. I'm showing you this for a relative scale. By the way, I'm going to post up these graphics after I'm done with the broadcast. You can look at them at your leisure and understand it. Let's take a look at these, but I want you to trigger on to a few things. Look at the first one at the top left, measles. Measles. Think about that for a minute. Measles, 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 measles. You've heard it. I've heard it. We got our vaccinations. Measles are exceedingly rare nowadays. But you saw how big that bubble was. And this is why I'm telling you, you and your family today are in the best possible situation and the best time in history to have a pandemic strike. Let's go back to that. Take a look at that. That's measles. Okay? Now, why is that important? You might not be able to see the graphic as large as I can. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna possibly have to read it to you. And remember, I'm gonna share these when I'm done. But let's look at measles. Measles, 200 million people have perished from measles. What you might not really be seeing because the graphic's small, I may be able to zoom it up. The 7th century BC to 1963. 1963 is basically the date when it was kind of considered the vaccine came about, or it actually came about before that, but really everybody got it in schools, and vaccine was just part of it. Now, why bother showing you this? It goes back to my comment earlier that you very must understand, and if you have children, you need to explain this to children. This is not new. This is what mankind, it happens to animals, it happens to fish, it happens to birds, it happens to us. These things happen, right? Are they the end of the world? No. Could they seem like they could be the end of the world? Yes. Can information get out of control? Yes. If you don't pay attention to it, and you don't follow the rules, and you sleep with fleas and rats shit in your bunks and your pantries, can it be worse and more people die? Yes. But that's why history matters. Think about that. Measles, we don't really think about that anymore, much at all. We just don't think about that. But these darn measles have been around since the 7th century. 7th century BC. Billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of people have come and gone since then. I'm not minimizing this. I'm just giving you some facts. I want you, your family, and your children to understand that that particular pandemic has been around since 7 BC and you're still here. We're still here. Mankind is still here. Now, the only thing that changed is that double-edged sword of good and bad, technology. I do not believe that mankind will ever experience pandemics on the scale of those again. Why? Because of exactly what you and I are engaged in right now. If we found out it took a teaspoon of salt, right? A piece of charcoal and standing on one leg, and that was the formula while you ate a jalapeno, and that is what got you well, way back when, that would basically go hut to hut. One little runner across the fields going out across the field. Maybe a pony, right? Maybe a steamship, maybe a sailing ship. And it finally, after it does absolute devastation, you hear about it, but it was really that simple as wash your hands, right? Or the little simple stupid formula I gave you. But here's the difference. If it really was today, that it was something that ironic, there's a teaspoon of salt, a little piece of charcoal, a jalapeno standing on one foot, you do it all at once, boom, that does it. Do you know what? You, me, our family, all of us would know within seconds and we could respond. And that's the difference you have to remember when it comes to this COVID-19. We are far better equipped than at any time in history to deal with this. I'm going to give you a recap. I'm going to show you scale-wise how these go. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight of what's going on at the government level and what's going on at the state level, and then I'm going to send you off with something to think about with this. But again, grasp this. If you are watching this now, you have the best tool in the world to protect yourself against this becoming fatal for you, the best possible chance there is. And that's knowledge and information coming right through the broadcast just like this and being able to share it. Your aunt may not be on, your cousin may not be on, your child may not be on, but you can flip them this video, can't you? You can actually say, hey, share it, take a look. That's why this is the best time in history. Next is we have far better understanding of viruses and germs and epidemics and pandemics and what makes them move and go than we've ever had before. That means why mankind has a brain, why mankind has free will, why mankind dominates the planet, because we can react and respond and evolve past it. Let me give you a few more visuals here that I want you to look at so you kind of understand where this is in the scale. I love this infographic. It was the one that I used for the broadcast, but I want to take you through this because this is a website, by the way. It's called Visual Capitalist. Visual Capitalist. Instead of venture capitalist, Visual Capitalist. This site is absolutely fantastic, right? Fantastic, because what it does is it shows you the plagues and different things visually. So let's kind of go through this. If you look right here, here's the Antony Pledge. 5 million people died. That was in 165 to 180. The plague of Justinian, 541 to 542, that was 30 to 50 million people died. The Japanese smallpox epidemic, 735 million. Let me pump this up for you. I think I may, well, I don't think I can really get it much larger, but I'll post this. Japanese epidemic, 735 to 737. There was 1 million. Black Death, bubonic plague, otherwise known as the, what was it? It was rat crap, right? Rat turds and stuff. Rats were carrying in a ship. 200 million people died in 1347 through 1351. Smallpox, I just talked about. There was great plagues all during the 17th century, right? 3 million. 18th century cholera outbreak in 1817 through 1923, the third plague, 1855. Take a look at these, right? You can take a look at it. Here's the Spanish flu, came out of nowhere, 450 million over here on the right. The Russian flu, Russia had to deal with one, 1889 to 1890. Here's HIV, it's the red one, that's the present right here down at the bottom, right here down at the bottom. Is COVID, and that is kind of where it is in the moment. Look, HIV, AIDS, Asian flu, Hong Kong flu, you need to understand it in scale, and you need to understand it in scale based upon how do you respond to it. Back when the Spanish flu came about, we didn't know enough about containing flus, but if you look at the flus subsequently, that's this line to the right, subsequently, the flus went way down. See it? Big old green flu, the flus on the right, they went way down in the response to them. We learned more during those times of how to control outbreaks, how to social distance, etc., and we reduced it. Look at HIV/AIDS, okay? This is very important, folks, very important. That was regarding your sex life. Everybody protects themselves now. Back then you didn't. And you saw how it went up. It's because it was your sex life. It was different than a flu. The flus were way up here and we got them down to these little small contained ones because we learned more. Now, right, AIDS is there, it's out, but it's being contained more and more as you learn. What is the lesson? The lesson is we continue to learn. As we learn, this epidemic passing and epidemic scale reduces by itself because it has been ingrained in us what to do and not to do. You know, a long time ago, do you understand the history of me shaking your hand? If we reach out and shake hands, do you even know where that comes from? Why do people reach out, especially men, reach out and shake hands, right? Or grab the arm and shake the hand. That came about back in history when mankind battled with swords. And so the hand, their predominant hand that they shook was their battle hand. And so when the chieftains or the warriors or the people were coming together to prove I don't want to cut your freaking head off, they would walk up to each other, put their arms on the weaker arm, grab their stronger hands in a handshake, and they would stand there and talk. It was the universal symbol of I'm here to make peace. I'm here to work it out with you. I am not an enemy. Do not be intimidated by me. Why are you shaking hands today? I'm here. I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy. Hey, nice to meet you. You don't have to worry about me. Same thing. It's just filtered down through history. It had a reason then, right? Now, maybe with this, we kind of look at it. Maybe we don't shake hands. You wonder why other cultures do this? Because their cultures experienced the transmission of these things by the hand contact, and long ago in time, they adapted culturally to make sure they mitigated that risk. Let's go back to sharing my screen and going over these historically, and let's again go back to this visual capitalist on it. Here's how it looks like when you put them side by side. So you've got the Black Death, bubonic plague. It changed the history of the world. But I want you to know that big old honking purple fur baby that you see on my screen, you are a survivor of that. Now, granted, it wasn't you personally, but back in time, your ancestors survived that. And because they survived, you are here. They survived, you are here. If you're watching this, your family, your ancestors, the history of you survived the Black Death, smallpox, Spanish flu, etc., 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 down to where we are today. We're right here with COVID-19. Okay, we're right here. Again, I'm not minimizing at all. I just want you to understand, because you can hear me and because you can see this, you already have a genetic predisposition to survival. Your parents did it, your grandparents did it, your great-grandparents did it, etc. You survived. Let me show you a list. You probably don't know how many, and from a history standpoint, just because we don't talk about this, right? You probably don't know how many you survived. Ooh, that got way knockered out of there. Okay, let's take a look at this. Here are epidemics, pandemics, etc. I'm going back here. You know, some of you watching might have been born as you know, if you're like my some people's grandparents, or my father's born in 1933. So okay, great. 1924, there was a Los Angeles plague, right? Pneumonic plague that broke out, typhoid fever in the UK. Look at this. See, it's not that this particular thing with COVID-19 is new. Asian flu, 57 to 58. 2 million people died. How many of you watching this broadcast were born in the 50s, very late 50s? The 7th cholera pandemic of the world was 1961 to 1975. That encompasses a lot of us watching this broadcast right now. Look at that, right? Smallpox, like I said, smallpox, there's smallpox. It's absolutely horrid. But you know what? It's been going on since the 3rd century BC until finally what was called its eradication in 1977. You just got to understand this. There's cholera. What cholera does to you. Look at this worldwide Hong Kong flu, okay? That's the Hong Kong flu. 1968 to 69, 1 million people worldwide. Now I'm going to scroll down because I'm going to assume a lot of you were born in the 70s forward. But look, okay? It is not that this is 100% novel. It is that stuff like this happens all the time. This is what viruses do. They mutate, okay? They mutate. Cholera, 2009 flu pandemic. There's all the countries. Same thing you're seeing on television right now. That's the H1N109 virus. That's it right there. Am I minimizing it? No, but it was worldwide in 2009, okay, 11 years ago. And they estimate between 151,700 and 575,000 people passed away. Again, in no way am I minimizing this. I just want you to understand, and I want you to understand with your children, your grandchildren, or otherwise, You've been here. They've even been here. If you have kiddos that are 5 and 6 years old, they have already been through a worldwide Zika pandemic, right? You just have to understand that. If you're in Latin America, young kids, they've been through the dengue fever. Viruses and their mutation will never go away. It's part of the history of mankind. It happens, they mutate. But nowadays, we don't have open running sewers, and we have clean filtered water in most places in the world, and we can wash our hands, right? And we don't wipe our butts with our hands anymore. There's so many different things that we do to modify and have modified over time. Here I am, a Jew, and you understand that rabbinical law, you're not supposed to eat pork. But why was that? It's because way back when, pork would kill you. Trichinosis and everything else, and they thought the pork was evil. They didn't understand what it was, and they forbid the eating of pork and cloven hooves. But as science and medicine went through, we figured it out, and now, as a Jew, I hate to say it, is, man, I love a really crispy, chewy piece of bacon. It's absolutely fine. One of our, Joe Fagan here says he had the German measles when he was a child. A lot of us has, right? It's also what Monica says. That's why they say that this is the strongest people on earth now. You're right. We're Mad Max's children, folks. We have survived things like this and evolved better and better. What we must do is just pay attention to, like anything else in the world, there's rules. Wash your hands, social distance, take care of yourself. You don't need to go be doing the horizontal mambo on the beach drinking. And by the way, who wouldn't want to be on the beach doing the horizontal mambo drinking? But you know what? Sometimes you have to think of others over you think of yourself. That's the lesson. That's the lesson. We've been here before. We have more strength and resilience than you might know. No, we don't have to minimize this, but you do have to take it seriously. You do have to take care of yourself. But I wanted you just to have this history lesson because you can tell your children, your precious children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever you have, you can say, we've been here before. As they're laying in bed and they're freaking out, oh, Dad, what are we going to do? Oh, my God, are we going to die? There's nothing worse than being a child thinking you're going to die of some funky disease. For Mom and Dad to say, we've gone through this before. This happens in the world, and we learn and we improve. I learned that. Remember I told you about the Los Angeles riots? I had somebody very smart that I believe is one of the smartest men in the world share something with me. At the time, it took me a little while to understand. But then when I got it, it was just like, that was probably the best rule or understanding of mankind I ever got. It was right after the O.J. Simpson trial, which was another horrible Los Angeles thing, right? Right after the O.J. Simpson trial, and after O.J. was found not guilty. And I had dinner with Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz. It was a big dinner. The Bass family, big investment family in Fort Worth, had threw a big dinner party. And I remember, and you see Alan Dershowitz a lot on Fox News and other channels, you know, Harvard professor, but he said, one of the best things to happen, and I'm paraphrasing, because this will make the news tomorrow when somebody takes off, but what he said was, one of the best things to happen to mankind was the Nicole Simpson, Goldstein or whatever, murder. And that kind of like, what? And he says, think of it this way. The whole world knows that that crime scene was totally botched. Police officers, reporters were walking through the pools of blood, walking all over the place. Everybody had been all over it and had fouled the crime scene down to the gloves, right? Down to even getting the glove and everything. It was so contaminated forensically that it aided in the non-guilty verdict to OJ. Ron Goldman, thank you, Ron Goldman. Yeah, Nicole Simpson Brown and Ron Goldman. And as sad as that is, Professor Dershowitz said, it forever changed every single police department in the world and furthered the science of forensics. He said, by seeing that horrible crime botched and seeing how all of the police mucking with that crime scene kept certain things from being discovered, he said every single police department, FBI, crime prosecuting unit around the world learned, and they learned to stop in their tracks, not walk through the scene, and it forever changed what now we know as forensic science and upgraded the world tremendously. And now you see how they catch criminals super fast or whatever. Now, I thought that really odd at the time. How could this horrific murder be something very valuable to history? Well, when you look at it, it changed forensics, and we all know how forensics help and how exciting forensics are. That's it. Sometimes this world of ours has to kind of look in the mirror. It has to have it reflected back. We don't learn as a species from good times. We party during good times. We don't think about a damn thing during good times except ourselves. But when shit hits the fan and it gets hard, we as a species learn. We morph, we adapt, we change. Right now, as horrible as this pandemic is, as scary as this pandemic is, you now know you're already a survivor. Your children are children of survivors. They're already ahead of the game. Share that with them. You've been through it before. Share that with them. Calm them down. Let's bring down the tension. But know this, because of what's happened now, chances are there won't be another one that happens like this. This will forever change the way medicine is approved, treatments are approved, tests are approved. Those of you that know me personally know for the last week and a half, other than the rings under my eyes, I have either been on with senators or generals and working with a team to basically answer this coronavirus response on the level that I can participate in, is just trying to get you the test in the home. I can tell you down from the president level down, and dealing with different states and looking at different people in the Army and everything else and watching all these great people bring their resources to bear, nothing's being spared for our nation. Nothing's really being held back. Nobody's hesitating. In fact, very few people are getting sleep. It just has to break old ways, old log jams that used to be the way we did it, and using this crisis to accelerate the things that we can do as we can get them approved in the system. It's very hard to back off old ways when every single city or state government operates a certain way. But even in this epidemic, this pandemic, you've seen evolution occur. You've seen it go from lab tests where maybe you have to send out tests and it takes a week to 10 days to get answers. You saw that decreased down to 3 days. You saw it decrease to 2 days. You saw it come to 24 hours in lab tests. You get a response. Now it's gone up because the system's overloaded. Now there's a new test. You still have to go in and you'll drive up and you could expose medical care workers. That test is 45 minutes, but you can't stand in a queue and medical workers. And so where our team has been working this last week and a half to finish the rest of the response is you have to understand a third of the infected in China was their healthcare workers. It's not going to be about respirators or hospital beds if we lose a third or half of our healthcare workers to quarantine. And so we're working on that part of the equation, where if the system keeps evolving and keeps adjusting, what may happen and what we're hoping will happen is you're going to be able to use your phone with a simple little bitty test that you'll be given. Maybe the post office brings it to you or something else, but you'll administer the test yourself, and here's your phone, and you'll get an answer in 15 minutes, but you won't be on your own. Telemedicine will pop right in right there and basically walk you through the process right there at home, whether you're positive or negative, or whether you just have the flu, or whether you feel like you have it because this is so stressful. You're seeing incredible medical evolution and acceptance of things that normally take decades are being expedited down. So right now you've got a 45-minute response, and we're pushing very hard to get you a 15-minute response that is right there in your home. So you're not having to run around, expose other people or expose healthcare workers, and everybody can respond to you. This is what's great about mankind. This is what's great about this particular time in history. This is what's great about why all of this evolves and why we're all in this together. This is the best time and place for you to ever have to be exposed to a pandemic, because we have the tools and we have the technology. Yes, sometimes it's very hard to cut through bureaucracy, right? But read, novel thing, I hear it works. Play checkers and stuff with your kids, awesome. More time with the family. Sit at home and relax, sleep in, take a nap, learn to cook. There's some really, really cool stuff to do. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been sharing some really cool photos of various places around the globe and really cool artifacts and stuff you can do. So you can travel through your phone, right? You can travel through your phone and slow down. Slow down. Don't panic. We've been here before. We're smarter than ever. We have better technology than ever. We're connected, and you bet we find this breakthrough or we get this test just like I told you about. Don't forget, you can go to mdbox.com/coronavirus. If you need an telemedicine assessment, we'll do it for you. Look, this is the process. And we're in a good place. We're not in a bad place. It's scary. Social media makes it scary. And with that, I want to share you one last thing that one of the people shared on the wall, right? Or on their wall. As we're going through it all, sometimes it's just good to have a little levity. I saw a meme the other day, and the meme was about kids staying at home. And as a parent, you're going to homeschool. And it was a parent posting, this is the first day of homeschooling, and I want to expel the damn student and send them home, but I can't. So, you know what? Don't tax your immune system worrying. Send me a message. I'll talk you down. We'll have another conversations like this. We've been here before. You're a survivor of it. This is the way it goes. I know it's a ghost town out there, the streets. It's like, wow, you can hear birds, right? It's like, there's nobody going up and down the street. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. We'll get through it. Let me share one little last thing with you as I go. This will kind of be my little parting here. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. I am surprised. It shouldn't be. It never ceases to amaze me how people get creative and tough times and just have fun, put a little bit of smile on your face. So don't forget, we've been here before, but let me share with you one, and do me a favor, share this video, help people understand we've been here before in the history of this. But let me share with you this great little thing. I actually think you'll like it. I know I did. Ready?
I need toilet paper, toilet paper, toilet paper. I'm out of toilet paper. It's my corona. I need toilet paper, toilet paper, toilet paper. I'm out of toilet paper. It's my corona.
Time to make a grocery run. Well, that sounds fun. Why am I out here risking my life? Corona, where's the goddamn parking space? Shit, I touched my face. Wait, I think I finally caught my corona. Stop it, don't be panic, go inside. No organic, how knows? I'll be alone. Jesus Christ, now I panic, I'll die. my corona.
I'm out of toilet paper, it's my corona.
Don't come any closer, I'll mess you up. I ain't just coming in for some white corona. Kroger's full of empty shelves. What the hell? Yes, I'm stocking up on boxed white corona. Nothing's making sense. No more friends, no more basketball kids. Our homework school, it's raining too. And I'm losing my mind. My corona. My corona.
I need toilet paper, toilet paper, toilet paper. I'm out of toilet paper, it's my corona. I need toilet paper, toilet paper. I'm out of toilet paper, it's my corona.
When you're gonna get to me, get to me. Is it just a matter of time, corona? Will I kill my family in quarantine?
Yep.
Or is it just a game in my mind, corona? Then there's Donald Trump. What the fuck? Why you shaking hands and keep telling us nothing's up? That we're gonna be fine. What?
That is one of the funniest things I think I've seen. Enjoy it, right? Watch that. I'll share that music video with you. Anyway, folks, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Share this. Calm it down, folks. We're in this together. We'll get through it. We've been here before. Take care. Bye-bye. Love y'all.